In order to effectively use a hard drive, we have to divide it into logical segments, which is called partitioning it. When we partition a hard drive, we'll create what's called a partition table. A partition table is written at the beginning of every hard drive, and it describes the number and the location of all the partitions. It also identifies the boot partition, which is the partition from which the operating system will start. A drive has to have one primary partition, and it can contain one extended partition as well. Then we can divide the extended partition into logical drives. By doing this, we set up the C drive and the D drive and the E drive and the F drive on our computer. And the way that we start doing this is we type fdisk, F-D-I-S-K, at a command prompt, at a true DOS prompt. In other words, we're not still within Windows looking at DOS within Windows, but we're actually at a true DOS prompt, perhaps from starting up from a Windows 98 emergency startup disk. When we type fdisk, it will bring us to the fdisk menu, the partitioning menu, and we'll be asked whether we want to create a primary partition, create an extended partition, or create a logical drive. We must create a primary partition first. After we create a primary partition, then we'll be asked if we want to create an extended partition. And then after we create an extended partition, we'll then be asked if we wanted to create logical drives within the extended partition. It has to go in that order because the primary partition is the one that is absolutely needed. The extended partitions and logical drives are additional if we want to have them. After we partition the drive, then we can do a high-level format, also called an operating system format. A high-level format individually formats each volume or logical drive within the partition. It's performed by a means of using DOS and using the format command, or by using a graphical user interface command in Windows 9X. Before we install any other software, we have to format the drive that we're going to install the software on. This is whether the drive is a floppy disk drive or a hard disk drive. After we format, then we can install the software. The first software that we will install will be the operating system, because then the operating system will aid us in installing any application software. So for example, we might install Windows 9X, we might install Windows NT, we might install Windows 2000, but we'll install an operating system software after we format the hard drive. After we install the operating system software, then we will use the Add Remove Programs option in the operating system software to load the application software. Now, it's a good practice after we've installed a new operating system and we're getting ready to install a new application to back up anything that we can't afford to lose and can't replace. So if we've created some files, put some data into the operating system, or into, if we've installed some applications, for example, we've installed Word, and then we've copied some of our files into Word, and now we're going to install another application, then it's a good practice to back up the data that we can't live without and can't replace before we install a new application. The reason is that applications don't just lay on top of everything else that's already been installed on the hard drive. What applications do is they find their way in to all the little crevices in the hard drive. In other words, they actually make some changes to the operating system, possibly, the selections and the criteria that we've set in the operating system, and they can also make changes to other applications as they come in. So we want to have a complete backup complete backup of the entire drive if possible. A lot of times that's not possible, but at least a backup of what we can't live without and can't replace. That, in my opinion, is the only thing that you really need to back up, and that would be your data. We also need to create a rescue disk to recover from a corrupted partition table. In other words, after we install Windows 98, that's a great time to make another Windows 98 emergency startup disk. You can't have too many of those things. So now that we've got an operating system installed and some applications, next we'll discuss some maintenance and troubleshooting issues.